Emperor Jaewon Choi stood on the balcony of the former council chambers, looking out over the renamed capital world of New Terra. 6 months had passed since the council's surrender, and the transformation of galactic civilization was proceeding exactly as planned. Below him, representatives from 847 species knelt in the Grand Assembly, swearing loyalty to the human galactic empire. The irony was not lost on him. His great-great-grandmother, Dr. Mira Choi, had once stood in this same chamber as humanity faced judgment and exile. Now her descendant ruled the galaxy from the same throne where High Counselor Velthar had once condemned humanity as too primitive for civilized society. "Your Majesty," said Grand Admiral Minjong Song, approaching from behind, "the integration reports are ready for your review." Jae-hwan turned to face his supreme military commander. Minjong had been born in the Outer Rim, trained from childhood for this moment when humanity would reclaim its rightful place among the stars. "How are our new subjects adapting?" he asked. "Better than expected," Minjong replied. "The species that surrendered early are being rewarded with limited autonomy under human oversight. Those that resisted to the end are undergoing more intensive re-education programs." Jae-hwan nodded. The integration process had been carefully planned during the long years of exile. Species that had shown mercy to humans during the Exodus were treated as valued allies. Those that had supported the banishment faced consequences proportional to their past actions. "What about the council leadership? High Counselor Velthar and his inner circle are awaiting trial," Minjong reported. "High Judge Soyeon Kim believes the proceedings should be broadcast across the galaxy as an example." In the judicial chambers below, High Judge Soyeon Kim was indeed preparing for the most important trial in galactic history. As she reviewed the evidence against the former council leaders, she understood that these proceedings would define humanity's new empire. "The charges are simple," she explained to her legal team. "Crimes against humanity, conspiracy to commit genocide through forced exile, and abuse of political power to suppress a developing species." Former High Counselor Velthar, his energy form now dim and flickering, faced his accusers with what might have been dignity. "You cannot judge us by human laws," he protested. "We acted according to galactic law and council tradition." "Galactic law?" Soyeon replied coldly. "The law that said one species could exile another to the darkness without trial or appeal? The tradition that declared humans too primitive to exist among civilized beings? Those laws died when you sentenced 8 billion innocent people to exile. The trial was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Former council species watched as their leaders were held accountable for decisions made a century ago. The message was clear. The age of unquestioned authority was over. Chancellor Dong-wook Lee was implementing the new governmental system from his offices in the administrative complex. The human galactic empire combined democratic principles with imperial efficiency in ways that would have been impossible under the old council system. "Each province will be governed by a human administrator," he explained to his staff. "But local populations will elect advisory councils to represent their interests. Species that prove their loyalty will gradually earn greater autonomy." The system was designed to prevent the kind of stagnation that had affected the old council. Human administrators brought energy and innovation to worlds that had been governed by the same methods for centuries. Local advisors ensured that species-specific needs were met while maintaining imperial unity. "What about resistance movements?" asked Deputy Chancellor Hyemin Park. "There are some," Dongwook admitted, "mostly on worlds that supported the original exile. But Director Yanwoo Jung's integration program is proving remarkably effective." Director Yanwoo Jung operated from the Cultural Development Center, overseeing the most ambitious social engineering project in galactic history. Her mission was to reshape alien civilizations to fit within the human framework while preserving what was valuable in their cultures. "We're not trying to make them human," she explained to a gathering of provincial administrators. "We're trying to make them understand why humanity deserves to lead the galaxy." The integration program began with education. Alien children learned human history alongside their own, with particular emphasis on the exile and return. They studied human innovations in science, technology, and military strategy. Most importantly, they learned that human leadership had brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy after centuries of council stagnation. Adult populations underwent voluntary re-education programs that offered significant benefits to participants. Aliens who completed the programs received priority for government positions, better housing, and enhanced trade opportunities. Those who refused were not punished, but they found themselves excluded from the Empire's growing prosperity. "It's working better than we hoped," Yanwu reported to Emperor Jaewon. Third-generation aliens are becoming genuinely loyal to the Empire. They see human rule as natural and beneficial rather than imposed by force. But the most dramatic changes were occurring in the military sphere. Grand Admiral Min Jong-song was overseeing the integration of alien fleets into the Imperial Navy, creating the most powerful military force in galactic history. "Every species brings unique capabilities," she explained to her senior officers. "The Aquatic Union's ships excel in nebular warfare. The Silicon mines provide unmatched computational support. The Hive Confederation offers perfect coordination for swarm tactics." Former Council species that had possessed military forces found themselves serving under human command. Their ships were upgraded with human technology, their crews trained in human tactics, and their missions directed by human strategic planning. "The irony is perfect," commented Admiral Taman Park, now commanding a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. "They once called us too violent for civilized space. Now their own ships serve in our military under human command." The transformation was not without challenges. Some species struggled to adapt to human military discipline. Others had difficulty understanding the aggressive tactics that had made humanity masters of the galaxy. But gradually, a new culture was emerging. Young aliens who served in integrated units began adopting human customs and perspectives. They learned to value courage, determination, and innovation over the passive compliance that had characterized the old council. High Judge Soyeon Kim concluded the council leadership trials with verdicts that sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Some former leaders were executed for crimes against humanity. Others received life imprisonment on remote worlds. A few who had shown mercy during the exile were pardoned and integrated into the new government. "Justice has been served," she announced to the assembled galaxy. "The leaders who condemned humanity to exile have faced the consequences of their actions. This empire is built on the principle that no species should suffer as humanity suffered." The trials served their intended purpose. They demonstrated that the new empire, while human-led, was governed by law rather than mere force. Species that cooperated with human rule could expect fair treatment and protection. Those that opposed it would face swift and certain punishment. On the anniversary of humanity's return, Emperor Jaewon addressed the galaxy from the same chamber where Ambassador Jiho Park had once faced the Council's judgment. 100 years ago, your predecessors banished humanity to the darkness," he began, his voice reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. "They believed they were protecting civilization from our primitive violence. They called us too dangerous for the company of peaceful species." The Emperor paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "They were right to fear us, but wrong about everything else. We were never primitive. We were simply waiting for the galaxy to be ready for human leadership. The age of councils and committees is over. The age of humanity has begun." In the audience, representatives from hundreds of species listened in respectful silence. Many were the grandchildren of beings who had voted for humanity's exile. Now they served in an empire built by the descendants of those same exiled humans. "Your ancestors made a choice," Jaehwan continued. "They chose to banish us rather than learn from us. We have made a different choice. We choose to lead you to heights your species never imagined possible under the old system." The ceremony concluded with the oath of imperial loyalty, recited simultaneously on every world in the empire. Trillions of beings, human and alien alike, pledged their allegiance to the human galactic empire and its emperor. In the gardens outside the former council chambers, human children played alongside young aliens of dozens of species. The alien youngsters watched in fascination as human children demonstrated games and activities that emphasized competition, strategy, and individual achievement. "Why do you play fighting games?" asked a young member of the ethereal collective. "Because fighting made us strong," replied a human girl named Soyeon. "And being strong made us the leaders of the galaxy." The alien child considered this carefully. In the old council system, such games would have been discouraged as promoting violence. Under human rule, they were seen as valuable preparation for leadership. Supreme Commander Young Bin Sim stood before the holographic display, showing 12 council worlds simultaneously under attack. Operation Retribution had begun at exactly 00 Universal Standard Time. And humanity had announced its return to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Status reports from all battle groups, he ordered from his command ship Vengeance, hidden in the shadow of a dead star. First, fleet reports Harmony Prime's orbital defenses destroyed. Came the reply from Admiral Romy Kang, aboard the Earth's Fury. Second Fleet has eliminated all military installations around New Geneva. Third Fleet has secured the Vega system shipping lanes. The pattern was repeated across Council space. Human battle fleets had emerged from dark space like avenging demons, striking with precision and overwhelming force at targets that had been considered absolutely secure. But these were not the desperate refugee ships that had fled the galaxy a century ago. These were vessels designed and built specifically for war, incorporating technology that the Council did not know existed. Admiral Romy Kang watched as her ships demonstrated humanity's new approach to space combat. Instead of fighting in the traditional two-dimensional plane that most species preferred, her forces attacked in full three-dimensional formations. Gravity anchor activated, reported Captain Taeyong Kim from his battleship Soul's Revenge. Enemy fleet cannot escape to hyperspace. The Council Defense Force found itself trapped in normal space, unable to retreat as human ships attacked from above, below, and all sides simultaneously. Traditional defensive formations meant nothing when the enemy could strike from any direction. Impossible, gasped Admiral Vorthak as his flagship was surrounded by human vessels. How are they moving like that? His tactical officer, a member of the Silicon Mines, processed the data with mechanical precision. They are using gravitational manipulation to change direction without following standard physics. Our defensive calculations are meaningless. Romy's ships were equipped with gravity drives that could alter local spacetime, allowing them to fall in any direction they chose. To Council forces accustomed to predictable movement patterns, it seemed like magic. But the real terror came when General Wonho Kim's ground forces landed on Council worlds. His soldiers fought with a ruthlessness and efficiency that shattered alien morale. On the industrial world of SciFiPrime, Wonho's troops used sonic weapons that exploited the hearing sensitivity of the native chittering collective. The sound waves did not kill, but they caused such disorientation that entire enemy units surrendered rather than continue fighting. Target their biology, not their equipment, Wonho instructed his officers. We know how each species evolved. Use that knowledge. Against the Hive Confederation, human forces deployed pheromone bombs that disrupted the insects' communication networks. Against the Aquatic Union, they used specialized ammunition that made their water-based armor ineffective. Against the Silicon Mines, they employed electromagnetic pulses that caused temporary system failures. Dr. Heron Yu's bioweapons represented the darkest evolution of human science. From her laboratory ship Darwin's Wrath, she coordinated the deployment of species-specific weapons that had been developed over decades of studying alien biology. Release the neural toxin, she ordered during the battle for the research world of Knowledge Prime. It will affect only the ethereal collective, leaving other species unharmed. The weapon worked exactly as designed. Ethereal collective defenders found their energy-based consciousness disrupted, forcing them to retreat while their alien allies remained unaffected. The psychological impact was devastating. Humans could strike down specific enemies while leaving others untouched. But humanity's greatest advantage was not their technology. It was their understanding of fear as a weapon. Fleet Captain Siwon Hong commanded the experimental ship Reality's End, equipped with humanity's most terrifying creation, reality anchors. These devices prevented faster-than-light travel in a wide area around the ship. Council Battle Group is trapped, he reported, as enemy vessels found themselves unable to escape. They can fight or die, but they cannot run. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Council forces had always known they could retreat if a battle went badly. Suddenly finding themselves unable to escape broke something fundamental in their military doctrine. Captain Hyun-jin, of the stealth destroyer, Nightmare demonstrated another human innovation, ships that could become completely invisible while maintaining full combat capability, opening fire on the command ship, he reported as his weapons struck a Council flagship that could not even see what was attacking it. Enemy crew is reporting ghost attacks. Council Admiral Zigzag tried desperately to coordinate his fleet's response. All ships random evasive maneuvers. Fire at anything that moves, sir, his tactical officer reported. We're firing at empty space. Sensors show no targets, but our ships keep exploding. The battle for Nexus Prime's outer defenses became a masterclass in psychological warfare. Supreme Commander Young Bin Sim did not simply defeat the Council forces. He broke their will to fight. Broadcasting on all frequencies, reported his communications officer. Young Bin's message reached every Council ship in the system. You banished us to the darkness, believing you were saving civilization from our violence. You were wrong. You were saving us from your weakness. We have returned to claim what is rightfully ours, dominance over this galaxy. High Counselor Velthar, watching the battle from his chambers on Nexus Prime, felt something his species had not experienced in millennia. Despair. How many ships have we lost? He asked General Cricksack. 40% of our fleet in the first 6 hours, Cricksack replied, his mandibles clicking with stress. But that's not the worst part. The survivors are reporting that they cannot fight an enemy they cannot see, understand, or predict. What do you mean? Human tactics make no sense according to our military doctrine. They sacrifice advantage to create fear. They use overwhelming force when subtlety would suffice. They fight as if death means nothing to them. Velthar studied the battle reports with growing horror. Human forces were not just winning. They were doing so while broadcasting their attacks to terrorize other Council worlds. They want us to know we cannot stop them, he realized. Every victory is a message to the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Seulgi Park's Psychological Warfare Division was indeed broadcasting every battle. From her command ship Mind's Eye, she coordinated information attacks that were as devastating as any physical weapon. Show them the footage from Factory Prime, she ordered her team. Let every Council world see what happens when they resist us. The video showed human soldiers walking unharmed through enemy fire, alien defenders fleeing in terror, and Council military installations burning under weapons fire. More importantly, they showed human troops treating surrendering enemies with mercy while executing those who continued to fight. Surrender, and you will be protected, Silgi's broadcasts promised. Fight, and you will be destroyed. The choice is yours. Across Council space, military commanders faced an impossible decision. They could fight an enemy that seemed unstoppable and face certain destruction, or they could surrender to the species they had exiled and hoped for. Mercy, many chose surrender. Crystalline Federation has laid down arms, reported intelligence. Director Cheong-O. The Nomad fleets are requesting terms for conditional surrender. The Aquatic Union is asking for negotiations. But Supreme Commander Young Bin Sim was not interested in partial victories. All forces continue the advance, he ordered. Target all remaining military installations. Broadcast surrender terms to civilian populations. Show them that resistance is futile, while cooperation will be rewarded. The siege of Nexus Prime itself began when the human fleet reached the capital system. But instead of attacking immediately, Young Bin surrounded the planet and broadcasted a simple message. High Counselor Velthar. 100 years ago you sat in judgment of humanity. You declared us too violent, too primitive, too dangerous for civilized society. You banished us to the outer rim, believing you were protecting the galaxy from our nature. The transmission reached every communication device on Nexus Prime, from government installations to private homes. You were right to fear us, Young Bin continued, but you were wrong about everything else. We were never primitive. We were simply preparing for this moment. The galaxy is ours now, and your age of committees and councils is over. Surrender now and your species will be integrated into our new order with honor. Continue to resist and you will be removed from existence. You have 24 hours to decide. On Nexus Prime's surface, panic spread through the population as they realized their mighty defenses had failed completely. The humans had returned and they had brought with them the fury of 100 years in exile. The war was almost over. The real question was whether the Council would accept defeat or choose extinction. Fleet Admiral Jonguk Nam stood on the bridge of the Retribution, humanity's most advanced stealth command ship, watching the first human fleet to enter Council space in 100 years. Operation Whisper had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ghost Fleet Alpha is in position around Kepler Station, reported his communications officer. Ghost Fleet Beta has reached the Vega shipping lanes. Ghost Fleet Gamma is approaching the Centauri research facility. Jonguk nodded. Each ghost fleet was actually a single stealth ship, equipped with holographic projectors and advanced sensors. To Council detection systems, they would appear as massive battle groups of unknown origin. "Begin Phase 1, he ordered. Colonel Jisoo Lee received the signal aboard her infiltration transport near Harmony Prime, the Council's major trade world. For 3 years, she had been training her special forces for missions that the Council would consider impossible. "Remember," she told her team as they prepared to deploy, "we're ghosts. We were never here. The only evidence of our presence should be the psychological impact on the enemy." Her soldiers wore adaptive camouflage that could mimic any surface or blend into any environment. Their weapons fired ammunition that dissolved after impact, leaving no ballistic evidence. Their equipment used power sources that produced no detectable emissions. The first target was Harmony Prime's Orbital Defense Control Center. Jisoo's team infiltrated the station through the waste disposal system, moving like shadows through corridors that supposedly had perfect security monitoring. "Control room secured," whispered Sergeant Minky Yu through the comm system. "No alarms, no witnesses," Jisoo confirmed. "Plant the viruses and withdraw." Within minutes, her team had infected every computer system in the defense center, with programs designed to create random malfunctions. Ships would be cleared for landing at occupied platforms. Weapon systems would fail to activate when needed. Communications would experience mysterious delays and disruptions. Most importantly, the security cameras would occasionally show glimpses of figures that should not exist, armored soldiers moving through areas that sensors claimed were empty. 3 hours later, Jisoo's team was back aboard their transport, leaving no trace except confusion and fear among the station's crew. Commander Min-hyuk Chai was conducting a different kind of psychological warfare aboard his stealth carrier Ghost. Wind. His ship could deploy entire squadrons of fighters while remaining completely invisible to Council sensors. "Target is the convoy from Harmony Prime to New Geneva," he told his pilots. "Standard terror strike pattern. Destroy 3 cargo ships, damage 2 escorts, and disappear before reinforcements arrive." The attack lasted exactly 12 minutes. Council patrol ships found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see or track. Their weapons fired at empty space while invisible fighters destroyed their charges with surgical precision. "What happened out there?" demanded Council Admiral Vorthak when the survivors reached New Geneva. "Unknown attackers," reported Captain Kessex of the escort vessel Peacekeeper. "They appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and vanished. Our sensors detected nothing." "That's impossible," Vorthak insisted. "Our technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." But the reports kept coming. Similar attacks occurred throughout Council space, always following the same pattern: swift, precise strikes by invisible enemies who left no trace except destruction and confusion. Intelligence Director Chae-young Oh was orchestrating an even more subtle campaign from her hidden base in the asteroid belt. Her specialty was information warfare, and she understood that fear could be more powerful than any weapon. "Release the first data packet," she ordered her team of psychological warfare specialists. Across Council communication networks, carefully crafted messages began appearing. Video recordings that seemed to show Council species planning attacks on their allies. Audio transmissions suggesting secret alliances and betrayals. Financial records indicating massive fraud and corruption. All of it was false, created using advanced artificial intelligence and human understanding of alien psychology. But it was crafted so skillfully that even expert analysis could not prove it was fake. "The Aquatic Union is planning to flood our worlds," claimed a fabricated recording that appeared to show Hive Confederation leaders. "The Silicon mines are preparing to override our computer systems," suggested another fake transmission from Ethereal Collective representatives. Within weeks, Council species were viewing each other with suspicion for the first time in centuries. Trade disputes turned into diplomatic incidents. Military exercises were viewed as preparation for invasion. Captain Sung-hoon Park was adding to the confusion with his Phantom Fleet operations. His battle group used advanced holographic technology to appear as ships from various Council species while conducting false flag attacks. "Today we're the Ursine Clan, Navy," he announced to his crew as they approached a silicon mined research station, full visual deception, electronic warfare suite active. To the research station's sensors, Sung-hoon's ships appeared to be a squadron of Ursine heavy cruisers. When they opened fire and destroyed 3 automated laboratories, the station's distress calls blamed the Ursine clans for an unprovoked attack. "We deny all involvement," the Ursine clan ambassador protested to the council. "Our forces are nowhere near Silicon Mine territory." But the evidence seemed clear to council investigators. The attacking ships had used Ursine weapons, followed Ursine tactical patterns, and broadcast Ursine identification codes. Similar incidents occurred throughout council space. The Hive Confederation was blamed for attacks actually conducted by phantom fleets disguised as insectoid vessels. The Ethereal Collective faced accusations of aggression when energy-based weapons destroyed several trading posts. High Counselor Velthar, now ancient even by his species standards, called an emergency session to address the growing crisis. "The peace we have maintained for 800 years is collapsing," he announced to the assembled representatives. "Our intelligence services report coordinated attacks by unknown forces. Our military forces encounter enemies that cannot be detected or tracked. Our most trusted allies are accused of betraying each other." General Cricksack, his insectoid carapace now bearing the scars of centuries, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Our security protocols are failing. Our detection systems are compromised. We face an enemy that understands our weaknesses better than we understand them ourselves." "What enemy?" demanded Counselor Zis of the Hive Confederation. "Our sensors detect nothing. Our intelligence networks report no unusual activity. It's as if we're being attacked by ghosts." In his private chambers, Velthar reviewed classified reports that painted an even more disturbing picture. The attacks were not random. They targeted specific facilities, specific individuals, specific weaknesses in Council security. Someone knew exactly how Council civilization operated. Someone understood their technology, their psychology, their fears. Someone who had had over a century to study them. "Impossible," Velthar whispered to himself. The humans were exiled beyond the galactic rim. They could not have survived in the outer darkness. But deep in his energy-being consciousness, a terrible suspicion was growing. Captain Sunghoon Park was conducting his most audacious operation yet, a phantom fleet attack on Nexus Prime itself. His ships, disguised as a council patrol squadron, had penetrated the capital system's outer defenses. "Remember," he told his crew, "we're not here to cause real damage. We're here to send a message." The attack targeted empty orbital platforms and abandoned research stations around Nexus Prime's outer moon. No lives were lost, but the psychological impact was devastating. For the first time in galactic history, the Council's capital system had been attacked by hostile forces. "How is this possible?" Velthar demanded of his security chiefs. "Nexus Prime has the most advanced defenses in the galaxy. The attackers used our own identification codes," reported Security Chief Marlek. "They appeared to be one of our patrol squadrons until they opened fire. Run full biometric scans on all patrol crews," Velthar ordered. "Cross-reference with genetic databases. Find out who these attackers really are." The results of those scans would soon confirm Velthar's worst fears. Genetic traces left behind by the infiltrators matched DNA patterns in the Council's oldest records. Human DNA. The species they had exiled to the darkness had returned, and they brought with them a campaign of terror, unlike anything the galaxy had ever experienced. The ghosts of humanity's past had become the nightmares of the Council's present. General Taehyung Woo stood in the command center of Fort Victory, watching thousands of human soldiers train in the crater fields of Forge. 50 years had passed since the Exodus, and the children born in the Outer Rim were now the finest military force the galaxy had ever seen. Taehyung himself was one of those children. Born during the journey to exile, he had never seen Earth or the Council worlds. His home was the darkness between stars, his playground the harsh environments that would kill most alien species. The Council had meant to break humanity by sending them here. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. "Status report," he said to his aide, Colonel Minsu Kang. "3rd Battalion completed the zero-gravity assault course in record time," Minsu reported. 5th Regiment finished their asteroid mining operation ahead of schedule. "And Dr. Yunahan wants to see you about the new weapon systems." Taehyung nodded and made his way through the underground complex that was Fort Victory. The base had been carved into Forge's rocky surface over decades of work. Its tunnels and chambers could house 1 million soldiers and were completely invisible to orbital scans. Dr. Yuna Han was waiting in Laboratory 7, surrounded by devices that would have seemed like magic to the humans who had first arrived in the Outer Rim. 50 years of desperate innovation had pushed human technology far beyond what the Council believed possible. "Show me," Taehyung said simply. Yuna activated a holographic display that showed a small device no larger than a human fist. "Gravity bomb," she explained. "It creates a localized gravitational field that can crush alien shield generators or tear apart their ship hulls." "How does it work against biological targets?" Taehyung asked. "Even better," Yuna smiled grimly. "Most alien species have evolved under specific gravity conditions. This weapon can increase local gravity by a factor of 50. A creature that evolved on a low-gravity world would be crushed instantly." She moved to another display showing a different weapon. "Neural disruptor. It sends out electromagnetic pulses that interfere with alien nervous systems. Each species requires different frequencies, but we've been collecting biological data for decades." "Collected how?" Taehyung asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Captain Donghyuk Bae's reconnaissance missions," Yuna confirmed. "His stealth ships have been studying Council species for 20 years. We know their weaknesses better than they know them themselves." Captain Donghyuk Bae was something of a legend among the exile generation. His ship, the Silent Hunter, had perfected stealth technology that made it completely invisible to alien sensors. For 2 decades, he had been conducting reconnaissance missions deep in Council space, gathering intelligence while remaining undetected. At that moment, Donghyuk was in orbit around the Council world of Harmony Prime, watching a massive trade convoy assemble. His ship hung motionless in space, its hull absorbing all electromagnetic radiation while its systems ran on minimal power. 12 heavy cargo vessels, reported his sensor officer, Lieutenant Yoonji Seo, escorted by 6 patrol ships. Standard Council defensive formation. Defensive against what? Donghyuk mused. "They think they're safe out here. They have no idea we exist. It would be simple to destroy the convoy." The Silent Hunter carried enough firepower to eliminate all 18 ships before they knew they were under attack. But Donghyuk's mission was observation, not destruction. "Not yet. Log the convoy route and composition," he ordered. "Admiral Kyungmin Ko will want this data for the deep strike planning." On the other side of the Outer Rim, Admiral Kyungmin Ko was indeed planning deep strikes. Her Deep Space Reconnaissance Division had mapped every major Council installation within 50 light-years of human space. More importantly, they had discovered something the Council had forgotten. "It's called the Omega Platform," she explained to her staff in the briefing room of the hidden base on Nightfall Station. "Built by the predecessor civilization over 1,000,000 years ago. The Council found it but couldn't figure out how to activate it." The holographic display showed a massive alien structure floating in empty space. It was clearly artificial but built using technology far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. "What does it do?" asked her intelligence chief, Commander Woojin Lee. "Near as we can determine, it's a weapon capable of sterilizing entire star systems," Kyungmin replied. "The predecessors built it during their war with the Devourers, but both civilizations went extinct before it could be used." "And you think we can activate it?" Woojin asked skeptically. "Human minds work differently than alien minds," Kyungmin said. "We've always been better at understanding and adapting technology. Dr. Sulgi Park thinks she can interface with the predecessor systems." Dr. Sulgi Park was the granddaughter of Ambassador Jiho Park, the man who had faced the Council's judgment 50 years ago. But where her grandfather had been a diplomat, Sulgi was something entirely new. A strategic warfare specialist who combined human intuition with artificial intelligence. "The key is psychological warfare," she explained to a gathering of human commanders. "The Council species have grown soft over centuries of peace. They've never faced an enemy that understands fear as a weapon. Her artificial intelligence systems could predict alien behavior patterns with frightening accuracy. More importantly, they could design psychological attacks that would break enemy morale before physical combat even began. Fear is our greatest weapon," Seolgi continued. "Not because we want to cause suffering, but because a terrified enemy makes mistakes. And mistakes can be exploited." Back on Forge, General Tae-Hyung Woo was reviewing the training reports from across the Outer Rim. Humanity had established bases on 73 worlds, each one specialized for different types of warfare. Forge trained ground forces. Glacier taught zero-gravity combat. Furnace prepared troops for high-temperature environments. Storm specialized in atmospheric flight operations. But the most important facility was the one that officially did not exist, the Strategic Planning Institute on the hidden world of deep thought. There, the brightest human minds worked on a single project: how to defeat the Galactic Council. "We're ready," reported General Hana Choi from Deep Thought. "Our forces are trained, our weapons are tested, our intelligence is complete. We can begin preliminary operations whenever you give the order." Taehyung looked at the faces on his communication screen. These were the children and grandchildren of the Exodus generation. They had been born in exile, raised in hardship, and trained for war. They knew nothing of Earth except stories, but they burned with a desire to reclaim humanity's place in the galaxy. "Not yet," he said finally. "We get one chance at this. If we move too soon, or if we reveal our capabilities before we're ready for full war, the Council will unite against us. We need to be absolutely certain we can win." "How much longer?" asked Admiral Kyungmin Ko Taehyung, studied the strategic displays, showing human strength throughout the outer rim. 50 years of preparation had transformed humanity from desperate refugees into something the galaxy had never seen, a species entirely dedicated to military excellence. 25 more years, he decided. Let another generation grow up. Let our technology advance further. Let the Council grow even more complacent. Then we'll remind them why they were right to fear us. In the training grounds of Forge, human children barely old enough to walk were learning to field strip weapons. Teenagers practiced combat maneuvers in environments that would kill most adult aliens. Young adults served as officers in military units that could conquer worlds. The Council had banished humanity to make the galaxy safer. Instead, they had created an entire civilization dedicated to the art of war. Every human in the Outer Rim knew their purpose: to grow strong enough to return home as conquerors. The forging was nearly complete. Soon it would be time for the return. Captain Daehyun Lee stared out the viewport of the new Sol at the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 3,000 ships of every size and type stretched across space like a metal river. Colony ships, cargo haulers, military vessels, and civilian transports all moving together toward the edge of known space. 8 billion people. The entire human species packed into whatever ships they could find or build in 30 days. It was the greatest exodus in galactic history, and Daehyun was responsible for keeping it moving. "Status report," he said. To his bridge crew. "Fleet integrity holding at 9.2%, reported navigation. Officer Sumin Kim. We lost 2 cargo haulers in the last sector, but their passengers were transferred to other ships." Daehyun nodded grimly. They had been traveling for 16 months now, and ships failed regularly. The hastily assembled fleet was pushing machinery beyond its limits. But they had no choice except to keep moving forward. Engineer Hyunwoo Yang appeared on the bridge, his uniform stained with grease and his face showing exhaustion. "Captain, I need to speak with you privately." They stepped into Daehyun's ready room, where Hyunwoo immediately collapsed into a chair. "We're not going to make it at this rate," he said bluntly. "The life support systems are failing faster than we can repair them. The hydroponic bays are producing only 60% of required food, and the water recyclers are breaking down daily." "How long do we have?" Daehyun asked. "At current consumption rates? Maybe 6 months before we start losing people to starvation or system failures." Daehyun looked out at the stars. They were still 8 months from the Outer Rim. "What do you need?" "Miracles," Hyunwoo said. "Or complete redesigns of our life support systems using whatever materials we can scavenge." 3 decks below, Dr. Nayeon Lim was conducting her daily rounds through the refugee sections. The new Sol had been designed to carry 50,000 people in comfort. It now held 180,000 humans in conditions that would have been considered inhumane before the exile. Families lived in spaces barely large enough for storage closets. Children who had never seen Earth's sky played in corridors under artificial lights. Elderly people who should have been enjoying peaceful retirements instead helped maintain the ship's systems. But what amazed Nayeon was not the suffering. It was the determination. "We'll make it," said Ji-won Shin, a former military commander who now led the ship's security forces. "Humans always make it." Nayeon watched as Ji-won organized work crews to repair a malfunctioning air recycler. Former doctors worked alongside former lawyers, former teachers alongside former soldiers. The crisis had broken down all the old social barriers. You're right, Neon realized. This isn't destroying us. It's making us stronger. In the engineering sections, Hyunwoo was proving her point. Working with teams of volunteers, he had begun redesigning humanity's technology from the ground up. The Council's deadline had forced them to use whatever ships were available, but now they had time to make improvements. Look at this. He showed his team a new recycling system. By combining the Martian atmospheric processors with the Europa water purifiers, we can increase efficiency by 400%. But it was not just technology that was evolving. Admiral Suman Kim, commanding the entire Exodus fleet from her flagship, was implementing new military doctrines born from necessity. We cannot fight like the Council expects, she told her staff officers. Our ships are mostly civilian vessels with basic weapons. Our crews are families with children. Traditional military thinking will get us all killed. Instead, she developed tactics based on mobility, deception, and coordinated swarm attacks. When hostile alien fauna attacked the fleet near a dead star, her forces did not engage in direct combat. Instead, they used the gravitational field to slingshot past the creatures while launching automated decoy probes to confuse them. Brilliant, commented Captain Taman Park from his destroyer escort. We turned our weakness into strength. The journey was not without its disasters. Engine failures stranded ships in empty space until rescue vessels could reach them. Food poisoning outbreaks killed hundreds before new safety protocols were implemented. A reactor explosion on the transport Busan Dreams killed 30,000 people in an instant. But each disaster taught lessons. Each loss made the survivors more determined. Commander Ji-won Shin began training volunteer militia forces on every ship. The Council thinks we're violent, she told her trainees. They have no idea how violent we can become when we need to be. Her training programs use the ship's corridors and cargo bays. Children learned basic combat alongside mathematics. Elderly people practiced marksmanship while teaching history. Everyone learned that in the Outer Rim, survival would depend on their ability to fight. 18 months after leaving Earth, the Exodus fleet finally reached the edge of Council space. Beyond lay the Outer Rim, a region of failed stars, rogue planets, and empty darkness that most species considered worthless. It's perfect, Admiral Suman Kim said as she studied the sensor readings. Her officers looked confused. The Outer Rim appeared to be a wasteland of dying solar systems and barren worlds. Perfect for what? Asked her tactical officer. For becoming everything the Council fears we are, Suman replied. The first world they found was a tidally locked planet orbiting a red dwarf star. One side was frozen solid, the other was burning hot, but the narrow band between them had breathable atmosphere and liquid water. We'll call it Forge, Daehyun announced as the new soul entered orbit, because this is where we'll forge the new humanity. As the first shuttles descended to the surface, Engineer Hyunwoo was already planning the construction of underground cities and manufacturing facilities. Dr. Naeun Lim began organizing the settlement patterns that would become humanity's new social structure. Commander Ji-won Shin selected sites for training facilities and defensive installations, but it was Admiral Suman Kim who made the most important decision. Standing on Forge's surface under alien stars, she issued orders that would change the course of galactic history. Every human child born in the Outer Rim will be trained as a soldier, she announced. Every human adult will serve in our military forces. Every human mind will be focused on a single goal. What goal? Asked Captain Daehyun. Suman looked back toward the distant lights of Council space. Going home, she said. And when we do, it will be as conquerors, not as refugees. The exodus was over. The forging had begun. On Forge's surface, human children took their first steps under foreign stars. They would grow up hearing stories of Earth, of the Council's betrayal, of the great journey through darkness. They would learn to fight, to build, to dream of the day when humanity would return to claim its rightful place among the stars. The Council had banished them to the darkness, believing they were protecting civilization from human violence. They had no idea what they had really done. They had given humanity the greatest gift possible, the freedom to become unstoppable. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime stretched higher than any building on Earth. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive space, their voices creating a symphony of sounds that no human ear could fully understand. At the center of it all, Ambassador Ji-ho Park stood alone at a small podium, facing the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Jiho's hands trembled slightly as he looked up at the High Counselor Velthar. The alien leader floated in a sphere of pure energy, its form shifting like liquid light. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 847 different species watched with eyes, sensors, and organs that humans had no names for. The species known as humanity stands accused, Velthar's voice echoed without sound, speaking directly into every mind present. In 50 rotations since first contact, they have spread like a plague across their sector. They consume resources. They build weapons. They fight wars. Dr. Mira Choi sat in the small human section, her fingers moving rapidly across a datapad. She had spent months preparing evidence to defend humanity. But looking at the faces around her, she knew it might not matter. The decision seemed already made. General Cricksack rose from his position among the military representatives. The insectoid creature's forearms gestured toward a holographic display that appeared in the air. "Observe their methods," he clicked in his strange language, translated instantly for all to hear. "They use kinetic weapons that tear flesh. They employ psychological warfare. They refuse to surrender even when defeated." The hologram showed human soldiers in battle. Jiho recognized the footage from the mining dispute on Kepler 442b. The humans had been defending their colony from raiders, but to the Council, it looked like savage brutality. "These are defense actions," Jiho said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through the translation system. "We protect our people and our homes. Any species would do the same." Counselor Zis, representing the Hive Confederation, buzzed angrily. Her thousands of eyes focused on Jiho like tiny black diamonds. "Your species thinks only of individual survival. You cannot comprehend unity. You bring chaos wherever you go." Mira stood up from her seat. "May I present our scientific contributions?" she asked. "Humanity has shared medical advances, agricultural techniques, and computational methods with every species we've encountered." "Contributions tainted by violence," Velthar responded. "Your medicine heals wounds caused by your weapons. Your agriculture feeds armies. Your computers calculate destruction." Jiho felt the weight of 8 billion human lives pressing down on him. Every person on Earth, every colonist on the frontier worlds, all depending on his words. "We are not perfect," he said. "But we are learning. We are growing. Give us time to prove ourselves." "Time?" General Cricksack's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "You have had 50 rotations. In that brief period, you have established 312 colonies, built 1847 military installations, and engaged in 23 armed conflicts. All defensive actions," Jiho protested. "All unnecessary," Velthar replied. "A peaceful species finds peaceful solutions." The debate continued for hours. Representative after representative stood to condemn humanity. The ethereal collective spoke of humanity's crude emotional responses. The Silicon Mines criticized human unpredictability. The Aquatic Union complained about human expansion into their preferred star systems. Only a few species spoke in humanity's favor. The Ursine clans admitted that humans were excellent trading partners. The nomad fleets praised human engineering skills. But their voices were drowned out by the chorus of fear and disapproval. "You judge us by standards we never agreed to follow," Jiho said, when given his final chance to speak. "You call us primitive because we fight for what we believe in. You call us dangerous because we refuse to submit to your rules. But what you really fear is that we remind you of what you used to be before you became comfortable and weak." A shocked silence filled the chamber. Even Mira gasped at Jiho's bold words. Velthar's energy form pulsed brighter. "You prove our point with every word. Humanity cannot coexist with civilized species. Then what do you propose?" Jiho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Exile," Velthar announced. "The Council has voted. Humanity will be relocated to the Outer Rim, beyond the boundary of civilized space. You have 1 standard month to evacuate all human presence from Council territory." "And if we refuse?" Jiho asked. General Cricksack's weapon systems hummed to life. "Then you will be removed by force." Jiho looked around the chamber one final time. These beings thought they were saving the galaxy from humanity. They believed they were wise and just. They had no idea what they were really doing. "You think you're protecting yourselves from us?" Jiho said, his voice calm and steady. "But you're making the biggest mistake in galactic history. You're giving us exactly what we need to become unstoppable." "Explain," Velthar demanded. Jiho smiled, and something in that expression made several alien representatives shift uncomfortably. You're giving us freedom. Freedom from your rules, your limitations, your oversight. You're giving us unlimited space to grow and learn and become whatever we need to become. Most importantly, you're giving us a reason to unite like never before. Empty threats from a defeated species, Zis buzzed dismissively. Not threats, Jiho replied. Promises. You see, there's something you don't understand about humans. We're at our best when we're angry. We're strongest when we're cornered. We're most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose. Mira gathered her data pads, understanding that their time here was over. As she joined Jiho at the podium, she whispered, What do we do now? Now we go home, Jiho said loud enough for the council to hear. We tell our people what happened here today. We pack up our civilization and move to the Outer Rim, and then we spend however long it takes to become exactly what these beings fear we already are. The council's decision is final, Velthar announced. Humanity has 30 standard days to depart council space. Any human presence remaining after that deadline will be eliminated. As Jiho and Mira walked toward the chamber's exit, aliens moved aside to let them pass. Some showed pity in their strange faces, others showed relief. A few showed something that might have been regret, but none of them showed understanding of what they had just unleashed. At the doorway, Jiho turned back one last time. 200 years, he called out across the vast chamber. That's how long it took Rome to go from a small city to the master of the known world. We'll be back in half that time. The great doors of the council chamber closed behind them with a sound like thunder,